Well, let's call our meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Shall we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's see. Whoa, things are working. Maybe not, but maybe not working. Okay, let's try this. How's this? Is that better? Okay. First thing on our agenda is receive conflict of interest statements. Anyone on the board got a statement? All right. Next item on the agenda is presentations from the ISAC. Well, we've received no information or letter from our representative. Carter, would you give us a briefing on that?
Well, we are still working on the renewal of the TERS system. We have been told to expect that all the necessary agreements that have been holding up the Park Road 22 bridge should be signed by the end of this month, which is coming up pretty quick. And so we would start that process, and they would rebid the original plans for that bridge. We're not going to change it. So that's what we're working on.
All right, thank you, Carter. Next up on the agenda is presentations by members. I don't have the list yet, and we're still signing in. Let's give them a minute. Thank you, Jim. Okay, first up on the list is Dana, is it Brooke? Would you like to speak?
Yes.
Please come up to the podium. Right up there where the microphone is.
Hello, everybody. Hello. My name is Dana Brooks. I live at 13938 Blackville Drive, Underwood Drive. And my subject is my fence. I like to put my fence by the street. Right now is just by my on the back of my house, very close. And I feel like I'm in prison, you know, because my old yard, 0.25 acre, is empty to the street. And I like to put the wood fence and make the street more beautiful. And my neighbors say, if I'm going to put the fence, they're going to put the fence. Then I need the fence. I need the wood fence. And please, 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 what I can do? It's not only for me, it's only for the island, you know? Is my fence going to be nice? The street going to be more nice, right? And my neighbors, because, you know, the problem is the plastic fence the vinyl fence costs almost $6,000. I can afford it. The normal fence, wood fence, is cost $1,500. It's a big difference. Then, I don't know, I have to promise I'm going to change my fence, the wood fence, after 7 years or after 10 years. I don't know. I can promise I'm going to. It's going to be bad, look bad, I'm going to change. then
Thank you.
that's
Mhm.
thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next up, Nancy Tressa. You want to speak, Nancy?
Happy pre-Mardi Gras, everybody. Get your beads. Not doing anything with beads tonight, I promise. And the lady brought up the fencing. I guess you back up to White Cap. Okay. There are several, and it's grown over the years, beautiful white, well actually beige, vinyl fences along White Cap. And it really has made a really pretty entranceway for us. And I know the program is dead in the water. I'm not going to go revisit that. But I'd like to encourage the board to relook at a way of continuing to encourage folks like Ms. O'Rourke in some way, manner, or fashion to try to keep continuity of the vinyl fencing along White Cap. We were able to get, and that's it? Okay, I'm done.
No, turn it down.
Oh, I don't think I can turn it down. I can turn down my voice. Anyway, I don't need that. Anyway, I'd like the board to really rethink that situation. We were able to get that cost down from $6,000 because we had a vendor that we were dealing with, and he knew we were going to be continuing a program, or he thought he was, or we were. Anyway, so it wasn't going to be $6,000, and somehow, some way, we, in our infinite wisdom, voted and moved as a board to subsidize residents like yourself to some degree. You pay the wooden fence costs in some way and fashion. We were able to pick up the rest of the costs. Nowhere near the differential there, so, but that's what we were buying in volume, I think. Anyway, that's my plea. I really like, I think a lot of people like the way it looks. And the reason why beige was picked is because it goes with the rocks that go along the beautiful median that I really hope is going to be maintained also. Again, it's for the beautification of the island, and I applaud you. And for your neighbors, it's not just your fence. When someone comes up White Cap, it's a lot of people's fence. It really looks pretty. So that's my plea. Anyway, Mardi Gras, watch it, Dale. What you been doing over there, pal? Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Nancy. Next up, John Weiss.
Hello, I'm John Wise. A little over a year ago, I stood up in a meeting and I asked for civility here on the island among the property owners. And I think things have improved quite a bit. And on that note, I've attended the last two compliance committee meetings, and I was amazed at how well run those meetings were. Thank you, Alan, for doing a great job. And his committee, sterling. They may argue, but they keep it very civil and polite. So I just kind of wanted to do a shout out to them. Also, Brent and Darrell, I think this is your last meeting. Thank you for your service. That's it.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
All right, next, Travis King.
Hi, my name is Travis King. I live at 13905 Hawks Nest Bay Drive, and tonight I wanted to talk about the politics of personal destruction and how it is being used against property owners to attempt to intimidate and silence them. A year ago, almost to the day, POA candidate Kelly McFadden accused me on social media of cell phone jamming and disrupting a live stream at the monthly POA meeting, which is a federal crime. Ironically, It was a live feed of my own speech that was disrupted. Yet I was publicly accused of committing a federal crime. This was a dirty trick supported by absolutely zero factual evidence to spook me into silence, as it is often their preferred method of attack. This group, led by candidate Kelly McFadden, often targeted me because I disagreed with them. They make allegations and then they walk away, allowing their friends to spread gossip and lies. Some may argue that this is old news, even though she's now a board candidate. However, there's now more to the story. Today, I got a call from the Corpus Christi police officer. He informed me that he received a call from POA Vice President Marta Sprout, right there, regarding a background check done on me. And he was listed as a possible business associate. To be clear, the POA Vice President performed a background check on a property owner who was not applying for a job or a committee with the POA. I am simply a property owner who has had the gall to voice his opinion. Mrs. Sprout then repeated Kelly McFadden's cell phone jamming story and accused me of being responsible. She then accused me of hacking her email account. She also told the officer that I was, freaking ridiculous. She also told the officer that I was attempting to extort her via text message by threatening to release pictures and video of her in a very compromising position. She suggested that the officer investigate it for her. The officer then properly suggested that she make a formal report to the CCPD. The day she called the officer was also the same day that I was posting on Facebook excerpts from a whistleblower report showing how Mrs. Sprout was caught lying and misrepresenting her communications with the U.S. Coast Guard. Coincidence? As a target of this act of retaliation, I have a right to know the details of the situation. I demand that a formal investigation be made to answer the following questions and answers provided to the membership. Was this a POA sanctioned background check? Was the background checks done on any other property owners? What board members knew about the background check? Who paid for it? Was it Mrs. Sprout? Was it Kelly McFadden, the POA? If it was the POA, which funds were used? Camp fees? I'm not finished. Did Mrs. Sprout call the Corpus Christi Police Department on behalf of Kelly McFadden? How many other innocent Islander residents have been investigated by law officers merely because they stood up against them? I also now demand that the board call a special meeting.
Time's up.
To vote to remove Marta Sprout and any other board member, excuse me, a special meeting be called to remove Marta Sprout and any other board members involved in this retaliation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for property owners to stand up and speak out against those who use the politics of self-destruction.
We break the rules and tell
It's
people
time
are breaking
to
the rules.
call them out.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to go to sit or?
Sit's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Ms. Walker.
Kay Walker, 14326 Bluefish. Originally I intended to get up and thank Brent and Daryl for their years of service and to complain about the placement of the canal markers in the north channels, but after talking to Travis and after listening to this, I'm going to go off script for a moment because I'm appalled that this would occur, and it's indefensible. It's an abuse of power. To think that a board member, an officer, would conduct an unauthorized investigation, background investigation, in a property owner, not a candidate, not a committee member, not a seeking employment, but just a board member that you don't like. I don't know what to say really, except that I think there should be a public apology. And I think you should know that this is the very reason that Island Forward was formed. And it wasn't formed by Travis, it was formed by me and a lot of people out here and a lot of people at home that are very tired of the abuse of power going on by the new regime. And we would like to see a civil discourse by adults. And we'd like to see an end to the McFadden's Facebook pages allowing the F-bombs to be dropped and name-calling of candidates in the name of free speech, yet when Travis does it, he gets investigated. It's unfair, it's inappropriate, I'm sad. I'm sad that this is what our community has come to. And I think that the board needs to look into this further. And I think Travis's questions need to be answered because I want answers to those questions.
Richard Pittman.
Richard Pittman, 14325 Grebe, and I am here to talk about the canal markers. So I want you to know, this is for the record, April the 19th, we had a bid proposal from a qualified bidder, Blue Coastal Construction, to do 34 canal markers to the specifications that the Canals and Waterway Committee had put together for $66,700. They were using 3/4-inch stainless steel through bolts. And for those of you that don't understand the difference between a through bolt and a lag bolt, a through bolt goes all the way through the pole, one side or the other. There ends up being 3/4-inch washers on the outside of that with nuts on both sides. Basically, the pole would have to come down before you would lose that sign. By the way, Blue was going to do that in 20 days. 3/4-inch washers on the outside of that. So, during the months of January and February of 2019, 10 months later, we ended up with 26 markers at a price that I still don't know because it's not been revealed to the Canal and Waterway Committee yet. Somewhere between, well, we've been told $30,000 to $40,000. So I'm going to take the low side of that $30,000. So basically that's $1,150 a marker. If you look at the 34 that Blue was putting in, that's about $1,900 a marker. So somewhere around $800 difference. What got installed are 1/2-inch lag bolts. By the way, both of them are stainless steel, but a 1/2-inch lag bolt. A lag bolt screws into the pole. The difference is monumental. When it comes to some higher winds, those markers, signs, are going to be getting blown away. So I just wanted to end up making that point, number one. Number two, if you have not noticed, our canals used to be 120 foot wide. In some places they are now 90 foot, some places a little less than that. Go check between marker number 7 and marker number 8 on the North Canal. How did this happen? I've had numerous boaters come to me and say, why did the Canals and Waterway Committee place these signs where they did? My answer is, guys, we didn't place them there. We were taken off the project in September by Marta Sprout, September of 2018. The Canals and Waterway Committee had nothing to do with where those markers ended up getting placed. What happened, they were moved out. Notice the width of our canals now. And because they were moved out to 8 foot deep water, which in theoretically sounds good, they are now, the signs are now 5 foot 5 foot, which the Coast Guard standard is 7 foot above mean tide.
All right, next up, Robert Algio.
Hello, my name's Robert Aljo, 15629 3 Fathoms Bank Drive. And I'm also here to talk about the white cap fence program. It only applies to the homes that have rear facing on white cap. I think there's about 33 of them. And this is a program that's been discontinued, as a matter of fact. At least there's the stipulation. The only address to this that's on the internet from the POA rules is on page 10 of 16 pages of the ACC guidelines, and it states that if an owner does not want to participate in the vinyl fence program, they may use an approved wooden fence, but it has to be on the building line 30 feet back from the curb from white cap. So that is no more. There is no more program to do that. There is no more program, which is against Articles of Incorporation. Article 4 says that you can only spend POA money on things that the POA owns. You can't spend $1,500 as an incentive to try to stimulate people to pay the thousands of dollars extra for their fence. And trust me, it is their fence. They're the ones paying for it. They're the ones that have to look at a white vinyl fence with connection issues to their wooden fence, which is on the sides. I'm hearing from people that it looks ugly when you're inside of your own property. The city code allows for 11 feet from the curb. This POA program should be dead. I don't know what you can do today. It's not on your agenda. There's got to be something you can do. This woman went to the ACC twice, and both times was shut down with nothing. She came away with nothing. I mean, she can't even appeal it to the board. The ACC was looking for the board to try to do something today. I don't know what kind of magic you can try to do. I know you've got to follow the rules, but I sure hope you can do something for this particular property, because this program should be declared dead, and this woman should be able to get a pool put in on her property. Her property. Thank you.
All right, Robert, thank you. Linda Griffin.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yes. I live at 13826 Suntan. It's in Galleon Bay section. And my question to the board is, how are the POA dues determined? And why doesn't everyone in the same section pay the same amount? I don't know what you can do about it, but I mean, I think that I pay a lot more than some of my neighbors that have lived there longer, and I just don't think that it's fair. And I don't know what we can do about it, but I wanted to pose my question. And if somebody could get back to me on what can be done about it, I'd appreciate it.
If you'll stay to after the meeting, I'll talk to you about it. Try to explain it to you. It's all in the covenants, as that's where it's determined.
Can that kind of thing be changed?
Yes, it can.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. All right, anybody else? Okay. Let's move on. Next on the agenda is the president's comments. Let's talk about the election first. March 9th is the election. Hopefully everyone has a ballot. Thank you. Hopefully everyone has a ballot. If you do not have a ballot, before you go home tonight, ask Jim here on the end how to get one. Okay? Everybody that owns property should have one, with the exception of townhouses and the condos, where the ballot usually goes to the management company and the vote is divided by the number of units. That's how that usually works. All right. Whistleblower investigations. Well, we've been busy. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 pending. Ms. Nita Smith has filed a whistleblower investigation regarding canals, the channels and the markers, that kind of thing. Alan Richardson has filed 314 leaking documents that the Compliance Committee has, one regarding HDR, Brent's employer, and finally one regarding a ballot that looks like it might be misappropriated or misapplied or something. Just one. So that's where we stand with those. In terms of the leaking one, unless someone wants to own up to giving, leaking the the document to a Facebook page, we're going to close that one, and there's no evidence to support a finding one way or the other unless someone wants to confess. So, and I don't see that happening, so I'm closing that one out.
Marvin, can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In an email that you wrote back to the on board, you named 3 of us.
That's what Mr. Richardson named in there, yes.
Right, as potential leakers, but after what I've heard tonight, and actually I've got a few calls myself from a few people in leadership, maybe you should open that question up to the entire board.
All right, we'll leave the case open for the time being and report next meeting. How's that?
Just fine.
Let's see, moving on. The HDR is still open, haven't had time to really look into that particularly. And the ballot issue is in the hands of Jim Smock to check the member list and that kind of thing. Jim, do you have any comments on that at the moment?
No, sir.
All right. Now, let's turn to the canals and waterways, channels, that kind of thing. All right. We are in uncharted ground here regarding these whistleblower things. I don't believe that we've ever had any in the past, at least I couldn't find any. So we've consulted with our attorney, the Cagle Law Firm, and this is what they've responded regarding it. Article 21.05, which is part of the board guidelines policy, requires the president to investigate and resolve complaints about unethical and illegal conduct and advise the board of the resolution of the complaint. The investigative powers and responsibility fall entirely on the president. Don't you just love being stuck in the middle? Article 21 does not require the president to explain his findings, just report them to the board. Additionally, Article 2108 requires confidentiality. This means that Marvin won't have to explain his findings to the membership. If owners seek details into Marvin's findings, Marvin should advise that Article 2108 confidentiality provision prohibits him from disclosing information regarding the complaint. That comes from the board attorney. So we will be following that. That's why we pay them for legal advice. Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Let me finish, and then if you want to say something, let me move on here. All right. Nita, who just walked in, has made a complaint against Martin Sprout, and we've asked the law firm to review the documents submitted by Ms. Smith, and here is the response from the law firm. I will read it to you verbatim. My takeaway from the review of the submitted documentation is that Marta has upheld her duties to the POA and its members in this situation. The emails clearly illustrate the negative impact the interference of others have had on the issue. Rather than coming off as an organized corporation, the badgering of the Coast Guard by others in the community has made the POA look disheveled and petty. The POA needs to focus on ensuring compliance with the Coast Guard's February deadline before it finds itself a defendant in a costly lawsuit. And that is from the legal firm. All right. So I'm not going to comment any further, but to say the charges and allegations are unsubstantiated at this point in time.
Well, no, that's ridiculous.
But what I can comment on is the bidding process. When Mr. Pittman said that Blue Construction offered a proposal of $66,000, actually $68,000 if you throw in a couple of grand to dispose of the old mold. And the CCC group offered a bid of about $140,000, significant difference in the two. Now, the board did not fund either one of these. It wasn't even brought up for a motion to fund. It was just set aside.
That's just a minute, not true. We voted on 2 motions, they passed, for $70,000.
Not for these. Just let me finish, please. Then, at the June 26th board meeting, a motion was made to obtain multiple bids for maintenance contract to replace, straighten pilings, and install signage on a per pole basis. That means asking for prices from companies. How much would you charge to do those things? That particular motion passed. All right, so now we're out looking for prices. Sometime later, September the 25th, a motion was made to install the 4 outer canal markers and give the project to Blue Construction. On August 9th, Brent made a motion to amend Marta's motion. He moved to use the Canals and Waterways proposal that they had on the table. This motion of Brent's failed for lack of a second on August 13th. The motion to install the outer markers passed. August 9th, Brett Moore at a previous board meeting made a motion to fund the canal marker project at $70,000. That motion did not carry. On August 22nd, Brett made a motion for the 3rd Canals and Waterways proposal for replacing the canal markers. That motion did pass, but there was no funding attached to it. Okay. This is what passed. It is a request for bids, not unlike the one back in June. It had no money to fund anything. It was simply asking contractors to bid on the project. Then, on October 23rd, another motion was made. Includes using the Heinrich Construction Company for labor to install poles and signs, to take a bid from Sign America for the signs and builder's first choice for poles and hardware. And the motion required that the PIPOA comply with all Coast Guard rules, regulations, and federal law. Okay. Marta then amended that motion to add a $5,000 contingency to the $26,000 that was to be allocated for a total of $31,000. Okay. Based on that, that's how the canal markers got installed. And that's what happened. Now, some people don't like the position of them. Some people do like the position of them. I don't imagine you could do much of anything out here without trying to make everybody happy. I don't think that's possible. All right. So that's my review of that. I'm going to pass the microphone to Marta. She has been slammed and hammered over this and would like to say a few words.
Hi there. feel like I need to wear a flak jacket. All right, so as you know, Nita has gone out of her way to publicly paint me in a false light by publishing distorted information that left out credible evidence that exonerates me. I can disprove all of her allegations, but we'd be here all night. Therefore, I'm restricting my responses to the more serious ones. Nita's letter says, Marta Sprout conducted herself throughout this process by making herself the sole point of contact with the Coast Guard and causing the POA to be put on notice that the POA could be facing serious fines and legal action for failure to maintain permitted markers. All right, let's take a look at this.
Let's pick up the pace.
Okay. So I have an email here from Tim Boriski, who is our representative with the Coast Guard, to me, and he says that he's received a lot of phone calls from people claiming to be board members asking the exact same question. On this date is when he asked me to be the point of contact. Then,
That was me, Marvin. I was saying, no, he didn't. Sorry.
No, this is important, because I have been publicly ridiculed, okay? So, I notified the committee, and I did it in a very professional tone, saying that the Coast Guard was a bit troubled by receiving a significant number of phone calls asking the same questions. That's all I said. Bill Sargent responds by sending a letter to Tim Boriski in a very abrasive tone that said that I was told your office was very upset with us for asking honest questions. That is not at all what I said. I just read it to you. Now you have limited our freedom of information. He goes on to say in another email that every time he contacts the Coast Guard, each time I get a little meaner.
Hey, Marvin, sorry to interrupt here, but if we're going to you accuse people of cherry picking, why don't we read the 82 pages that Nita provided? You are cherry picking right now. This is cherry picking. Get the 82 pages and read those.
So, as you can see, I am trying to demonstrate with you, and I will skip to the final letter. I have absolute proof in writing for every single point I want to make. And I did not cause any of these problems. I have been falsely accused. I will share this information with anybody who wants to see it. All right? I have an attorney, his name is Mr. Kilpatrick. He sent information, a list of questions to Tim Boriski. I got his response today. It says, Mr. Kilpatrick, good morning. In reply to the questions in your email, the U.S. Coast Guard manages private aids to navigation in accordance with 33 CFR 66. All correspondence between my office and Mrs. Marta Sprout was in accordance with these regulations. My office engaged Mrs. Sprout. Brent, my office engaged Mrs. Sprout.
Are you talking to me?
I did not appoint myself.
Are you talking to me?
So, my office engaged Mrs. Sprout as a liaison for the POA's private aids to ensure compliance with all relevant regulations and facilitate the maintenance, repair, modification, replacement, or removal and disestablishment of the existing aids managed by the POA. In my experience, Mrs. Sprout has always been extremely professional and courteous and has extended herself to do whatever is necessary to expedite prompt repairs of the 26 private aids to navigation discrepancies of the Padre Isles North and South channels owned by the POA. The 26 discrepancies recorded to date back 7 years to 2012. Since 2012, our office has communicated with many representatives of the POA prior to communicating with Mrs. Sprout, and not one single repair was ever resolved. Not one. After speaking with Mrs. Sprout on May 9th, she got more accomplished in a 7-month period than all of her predecessors accomplished in 7 years. My letter to the POA, addressed to Mr. Marvin Jones and dated October 9th, 2018, should not be seen as a threat of legal action. Rather, it was a standard letter from the Coast Guard communicating our intent to ensure regulatory compliance with a private waterway manager. All communication between my office and Mrs. Sprout was standard for this type of project, and Mrs. Sprout's responsiveness afforded my office all information necessary to carry out our regulatory authority. In doing so, Mrs. Sprout was ensuring both compliance with the Coast Guard regulations for private aids and safety of the privately managed waterways. In my opinion, Mrs. Sprout should be praised for her ability to resolve these navigation safety issues. I am not guilty of these charges, and I have documentation right here that proves it.
I've never been so embarrassed in my entire life.
All right. Let's move on. I think we've spent enough time on this topic. Executive Director report. Jim?
Marvin,
We're moving on.
before you move on, the
Out of order. We're moving on, Brent.
there's a whistleblower report that you should have had plenty of time to do on me and HDR, and I've given you guys counsel information, and I think you should heed that warning. If you don't want to drag the POA into a lawsuit.
Oh, that's a scumbag move right there.
You're out of order.
Yeah.
He's disrupting the meeting.
You want him out?
Out.
Okay.
Well, you know what, you throw him out, you might as well throw me out. This is such an abuse of
Scumbag.
power, and it's
You're
ridiculous.
corrupt.
It is absolutely ridiculous that you use that gavel and you throw people out of a meeting. I'm a property owner, you can't do this.
We pay our property money.
Jim? You got a report?
I did. If we could please keep the conversations in the audience to a minimum so that everyone can hear what I have to say. I know you'll critique me later.
Please, let him speak.
Good evening, everyone. Marvin mentioned that the annual meeting is going to be Saturday, March 9th. Just a little more information on this. The good news is the end is in sight, and I won't be talking about this, and you won't have to be listening to this much longer. So the annual meeting will begin at 10 a.m. At the Seashore Marine Center Gym, 15801 SPID. This Saturday, March 2nd, is the deadline if you are going to vote other than voting at the meeting itself. So if you're going to email or fax your ballot to Dr. Jorgensen and the A&M folks, Your fax or email must be time-stamped no later than 11:59 p.m. Saturday, March 2nd. If you are going to mail your ballot in to the P.O. Box, again to Dr. Jorgensen, your ballot must be postmarked Saturday, March 2nd. And certainly, you are welcome to vote at the meeting itself. We will have 3 sign-in stations so that people can get in, vote, and be seated, and hopefully the line will not be too long. You can, at the meeting, change your vote. You will simply let Dr. Jorgensen and the A&M folks know that you want to change your vote. I think having identification would be a good idea so that he can look up your name in the voter file, make sure that the control number is accurate. He will assign you a new ballot with that control number, and the ballot that you previously submitted will be thrown out, and your new ballot will be counted. Canal maintenance. Obviously, this is an issue. The way the wind blows on any given day can create problems. We know that. I have submitted to the board 3 bids from companies who will do routine, regularly scheduled canal maintenance. The difference in the bids really is how frequently the board may choose to want the canals to be maintained, and what maintenance means, and where they dump the debris that they find in the canals and remove from the canals. So that is in the board for their consideration. Cobo de Barro. Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time is the deadline for the 6 companies who have expressed interest in doing the repairs of the lot at Cobo de Barro to submit their bids to the project manager, which is CASA Engineering. I had a conference call today with CASA and 3 of the 6 companies who again have expressed interest in bidding. You obviously won't know until Friday, probably next Monday, who actually bid. But these are all reputable companies. To be sure that there's no conflict of interest, the bid or the RFP was sent out and the 6 companies replied that they were interested. So the POA had nothing to do with selecting any of the bidders or providing the bid directly to any company. Village Park. It's sad that I have to tell you there's been more vandalism at Village Park. Since I've been here, we've had 2 skid cans burned, and we've had 2 vehicles drive into and through Village Park. The first vehicle that went through Village Park destroyed one of the park benches. Admittedly, it was on its last legs or poles to begin with, but nonetheless, they destroyed the bench. The city has given us approval to replace that bench with a concrete bench that will be affixed to concrete slabs. Hopefully that will prove more secure. The city must approve anything that we do at Village Park. I understand that can be a frustration, believe me, but if we're going to put a bench in, if we're going to put new swing sets in, if we're going to do anything along these lines, the city, Parks and Rec must approve that. We need to obtain permits for any work that we do in the park. Marvin and I had a meeting with the city, and that was made very clear, politely, but made very clear. I am going to recommend to the board that we put an enclosure around the utility equipment on Fortuna Bay Drive. Given the vandalism, it is quite possible, I think it's foreseeable, that someone could decide that they are going to stop burning skid cans and do something with the utilities instead. So this enclosure will be built around utility equipment, the electrical, the irrigation system. It's not going to stop someone from doing vandalism. but it may make it a little harder, and they may go do some vandalism someplace else. Hopefully they don't do any. This is, if you were with us last Thursday at the candidate meet and greet, I mentioned that at that meeting, that would be the last forum for the current sound system. This really and truly is, for once and all, the last board meeting with the present sound system. We have received I think this was discussed, but the POA has obtained a corporate credit card. There will be absolute strict controls for the use of this card. If you'd like more information, I can go into detail on that. But one of the first purchases we're going to make is a new sound system. These mics will be gone. It will be lapels, handheld mics for people who wish to speak, and they don't have to necessarily come all the way up to the podium. And it will be a vast improvement, I think, over what we have. Software conversion and website. I think these are the two most vital things that the POA will do this year. The software conversion will be done first, and then the website will be built. It will be a new website. It will be a better website. So any complaints that people may have on the current website, at least the current website will no longer exist, and people can complain about the new website. Data will be pulled from the database, the software database, to the website. And I think one of the issues that I have seen here as a newbie and an outsider, certainly, is that a lot of the contentiousness that we see, you see, stems from a lack of information. Not opinions, not thoughts, but information. Knowledge of the covenants, knowledge of the bylaws, knowledge of what committees can and cannot do, knowledge of what the board can and cannot do, knowledge of what I can and cannot do. That burden is on the POA to provide that information in an easily accessible form. I will say that POA owners also have a responsibility to engage and explore that information once it's there, and to be informed property owners, just like we ask that people be informed citizens. So that is coming. And I already talked about the corporate credit card. Insurance renewals. This is general liability, property casualty insurance for the association. This is particularly important now that Village Park is under the responsibility of the POA, and we are responsible for any liability or injury that may take place there. Those renewals end, or they come due for renewal at the beginning of April. Next week we will have a bid from our present provider with the knowledge that we can certainly look for more favorable bids or better coverage for the same price. And I think, Mr. President, that is it for me.
All right, thank you, Jim. We're on to number 7, the consent agenda, board meeting minutes, and so on. Jim, can you discuss what we need to do with the minutes?
Yes, thank you. So there are 3 sets of minutes to be approved. They are in the board packet. As it says on the agenda, the first set of minutes to be approved is the December 11th, 2018 regular board meeting minutes. If you recall, at the January 22nd meeting last month, when this matter came up, there were some board members who wanted some changes made to the minutes as they then existed to, I believe in their opinion, more accurately reflect the actual happenings that took place at certain events and at certain times. So you have in your packet those changes that I made based on the requests that were made at the January 22nd meeting. The next set of documents is the special meeting on January 10th. You may recall that that was essentially where candidates who sought to be appointed to the vacant board seat came in, sat down, and answered questions from the board. And then most recently, I mentioned it, the January 22nd regularly scheduled board meeting. Those minutes need to be approved. Again, they're in your packet. And, I did send the packet out electronically, and you obviously have it hard copy in front of you.
All right, thank you, Jim. How long have we had these minutes? When did they go out?
I believe the board packet was sent approximately a week ago, maybe 5 days ago. If I recall, prior to that include all three sets of minutes. Because the December 11th meeting minutes, again, there were requested edits. I believe those edits were made, and that set of meeting minutes was sent to the board probably a good 2 weeks ago or so at this point.
All right.
Approximately.
Very good, thank you. Is there consent amongst the board members to approve the minutes?
No. I've got a couple of comments.
All right, go ahead.
So, apologize, I must not have looked close enough during the emails that you sent a week ago with the board minutes, but I'll go ahead and correct them here. December 11th, page 2, 6, item number 9. Village Park looking at 4 maintenance bids that would include irrigation, wetting, herbicide, etc. Should be weeding. That's a minor one. Did you get that one?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you go to page 6, it's the same thing that I talked about last month under the request for variances. When we went to executive session, items A and B have footnotes under them where Marta Sprout abstained from the vote, which was correct. But the footnote shows that Marvin Jones and Marta Sprout abstained because the board does not have the authority to grant variances to the covenants. This was pursuant to the executive director reading a legal opinion from council. Marvin Jones did not abstain from those. In fact, in the meetings, the minutes here, it shows that Marvin voted in those. So I must not have been clear on my.
Well, that's not correct. I did abstain. Marta, did I abstain?
That's what I wrote.
Well, you voted.
No, I did not vote. I abstained.
Well, then,
on that particular item.
Then they're wrong, Marvin. It says, and you did vote. I was there. It says on item number A, or item A, Marvin Jones voted aye.
Which vote are you talking about?
3A on page 6.
All right, just a minute. You got it? 3A.
3A, you voted aye, along with Brent Ward, Darrell Scanlon, and Carter Tate. You did not abstain from that vote.
3A, it doesn't say I abstained, it says I voted.
There's a footnote on Marta Sprout, there's a
Marvin
footnote.
explained that the property owner was in compliance based on the transfer certificate. There you go. Perhaps you're reading the wrong line somewhere.
Perhaps I'm reading abstain, it says Marta Sprout with a footnote of 2. Down at the footnote, it says Marvin Jones and Marta Sprout abstained. You did not abstain.
I did not abstain on that vote.
That's correct, you
Correct.
voted.
I did vote.
On item 3B, you also voted. And it has the same footnote.
That is correct, I did vote. These minutes are not correct.
That is correct. Yeah, just
Just remove my name there, Jim, from the footnote, and we can move on.
okay, correct.
With the exception of number C. The comma to borrow vote, I abstained, as did Marvin.
And the motion carried.
And the motion carried.
And but then a couple days later, somebody said, we can't do that. So did we let that variance go through?
Okay, we can make those corrections to the minutes.
Did we?
Question.
Did-
I think that has to be directed to the chair.
I think there was a question.
What's the question?
Did we approve literally this copy to borrow thing, or didn't? I thought I remember somebody saying after we voted this that we couldn't approve it. Do you know about that?
I don't know about after the fact, but because of the legal opinion, we shouldn't be able to grant variances, period.
But I mean, this was a, what was it, a 5 foot, 15, was a 5 foot addition? You remember it, Martin, what this was about? And it passed because y'all abstained, so motion carried. But did we then go tell the homeowner they couldn't use their 5 feet?
I don't know what the homeowner was told.
Okay, so we didn't
But
really.
we abstained, I abstained because our legal opinion from our
Yeah, I understand that.
attorney said that the board does not have the power to grant variances to the covenants.
Yeah.
Therefore, you can vote on it at all. And that's the way I saw it, and I think that's the way Marta saw it.
And so did we write the homeowner a letter and tell them they couldn't use the 5 feet? After all.
I don't know, ask Jim. But we can do the homework and look it up. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. So you want me to make you want to pass a motion to approve the minutes as amended? All three? Or we're going to go more?
I think we're good if you want to make that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as repaired.
Carter, I don't think we need a motion. It's a
Oh, okay.
consent agenda, so
Okay.
we just say yes.
Okay.
All right. Takes care of that. Moving on. Committee reports. Alan Rickardson, compliance.
Good evening. The POA Compliance Committee will hold their final meeting on March 13, 2019. It'll be at the POA office at 6 p.m. The next morning, March 14th, the committee will present our final report to the board and will also release our recommendations to the public. The committee recommendations will consist of, number 1, a revised Article 46, titled Compliance, Policy, and Procedures, to be placed in the POA Board Policy Manual. Number 2, a revised list of compliance rules and a new list of compliance standards. And number 3, a recommendation that the board implement a cost-effective yet comprehensive program to educate all property owners as to their responsibility covered under the POA bylaws and covenants. The committee believes most property owners would like to take compliance more seriously, and probably would if they knew what the rules were and if they were assured the rules were being uniformly enforced. While the committee is fully aware the board has been waiting on this committee to finalize our report, when presenting this report, the committee is going to strongly recommend the board quickly approve and implement these recommendations. As illustrated by the happenings of the last month, the committee feels it is imperative that the leadership of the POA get compliance issues under control and property owners educated as soon as possible. The committee would like to take this opportunity to thank the many community members who have given their comments and suggestions. We'd also like to thank the POA Board President, the POA Board Treasurer, and the POA Executive Director for their input and support, and a very big thank you to our Board Liaison, Marta Sprout, for giving us the opportunity to serve and the latitude to do the job. Any questions?
All right, next, architectural control, Tom Cable.
Stand on the minutes.
Standing on the minutes, thank you. Canals and Waterways, Bill Sargent.
I'm here to report for Bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Last year.
So this will be very short. Mr. Sargent's recovering from surgery. And so the members present were myself, Kevin Hendricks, Carter Tate was there as the POA board representative, and Jim Smock is the executive director. Bill was absent along with Matt Merrill. Also from the public, we had Nita Smith, we had Robert Peruski, and Heather Cox. Basically, we had asked Mr. Smock for a canal marker update. We wanted to know final cost and permitting. I guess we found out about final cost tonight, $31,000, and I'm assuming that's the final cost. We would like to end up having a copy of the CG 2554 permit. That was the canal markers. We discussed dredging. We had a gentleman last month that proposed a product. Aqua Sweep is one of the manufacturers, and basically this is a big blower that you put down close to the bottom of the canal and you blow the sludge around. We think that there could be some, that it might have merit for a property owner who ends up having a area where he's got a built-in boat, but I think you really have to be careful about undermining the sheet pile for our walls. Our walls structural integrity depends on us having at least 4 foot of cover on the toe of those sheets. Some areas this might be okay. We don't think it's an answer to the POA's dredging issue. Boat ramps. We've got 7 boat ramps. We think that it would be, and we've had boat owners come to us, we think it would be a great idea to end up putting a docking area. We've got a design that we've come up with that's basically a 5-foot dock by 20 foot long that people would be able to queue their boats when they're waiting to pull on a trailer. And we could build those 1 or 2 at each location. Carter ended up getting a price of approximately $2,000 per dock for that. So we'll be looking to formalize some plans, bringing that to the board with some recommendations for funding. The canal cleanup, Mr. Smock informed us of what's going on with the canal cleanup and the options. Bulkhead and tieback, Carter and Heather ended up making a report about the 146 feet of failure that we end up having over by the German bakery. Lastly, we feel that it's not good to end up having a 4-member board. We think it needs to be an odd number, so we're all agreeing to have a 5-member board. And we're right now looking for resumes for 1 new member. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on, number 9, treasurer's report.
There are no unusual single expenses in this time period. What we have done is we have closed the UBS checking account and transferred that money to Oxbow. It is now being held in certificates of deposit until we go over all of our investment plans and exactly what we want to do.
All right, short and sweet. Old business, Village Park, did we cover that already?
We have an RFP that needs one finishing touch to it concerning broadleaf weed control. That will be finalized tomorrow. We have been using one of the landscape architect actually who was part of the Village Park construction project, actually the design project that's been taking place, who worked with me on creating the RFP, and we, as we looked at it again, realized that we had left out that piece of the fertilization and weed killing herbicide aspect of it, so that will be corrected tomorrow.
All right, new business.
Marvin, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So are we about to award the contract for the park maintenance?
Well, once the RFP is corrected, as I mentioned, it will be sent to the board for review, and there are 3 companies, as I understand it, from the engineering firm, or the landscape architect, I should say, that were considered for the construction project that has just recently been completed, but they were not, for whatever reasons, chosen in 2018. Those three companies are interested, as well as some that are local to the island that do lawn maintenance for several property owners here already.
And when do we anticipate, once we do the RFP, request for proposals, and they submit those back, they're looked at, when do we anticipate awarding that contract? Because spring is right around the corner.
I understand. I would say by Monday, March 11th. I would add one thing that the city requires as part of our agreement with them, that beginning in March, we mow the park every 7 days. Prior to that, it was once every 14 days. Given the growth that we have seen and the advice that we have been given about frequent mowing, helping to control the weeds and so forth, we have already begun mowing on a weekly basis. It's every Wednesday.
Okay, so March 11th is a couple days after the new election?
Well, I don't think there's anything, there was not any intention to be conspicuous about that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that new board members are going to get an email vote a couple of days after they.
Well,
I'm all for it, because I'm not going to get the email that.
Oh, okay. Well, I realize they may have to make a decision fast. And for those who will be new to the board, it might be a little bit burning by fire. But, you know, I am ready, and obviously the people, the professionals who helped me with the RFP are ready to assist board members present and to be named soon in that process.
All right, good news.
All right, moving on. Item number 11, CPA engagement. Today, about lunchtime, we received a engagement letter from the CPA firm Jennings and Hawley that handled the 17. It's time to move on to the 18. I don't believe any of us have had time to study it or read it, look at the pricing.
Copies to distribute if you'd like. I can give the hard copies to you.
I think we should carry this forward until another meeting because we haven't had time to look into it. Anybody object to that? All right. That completes our agenda. Chair will accept a motion to adjourn. Second? Seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No one? Meeting adjourned.
Let's say thanks to Brent and Darrell.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brent and Darrell.
Hi guys. Here's the guy that I was gonna do this open briefly, but I think I represent and we're practicing. Hi, honey. I'm posting a little meeting and we're practicing.
Yeah, I get them the next day.
So that's 5:30. How's it going, guys?